Right, this is another update in the Acorn Archimedes restoration project, and this was all about playing games. Sometimes certain ideas do not always pan out properly the way you want them to. One of the things with the Acorn Archimedes is that the original machines did not have any means of joystick input. All the games were always controlled by keyboard, and usually they had really weird key settings, like using Z and X and L and P, and it's different for every game, and that was very inconvenient. So I thought, what if we could design some sort of interface that emulates a keyboard, where you could just use a Sega gamepad or any standard 9-pin joystick to kind of have a joystick interface. So I thought that was a simple idea, but it turns out it was a lot more complicated, and ultimately we scrapped this whole idea. This is a video of something that we were working on that ultimately did not get realized, because, well, it was taking so much time and I just wanted to go on with this project. So this joystick interface project is something that I have scrapped and, well, postponed for perhaps a later date when we get different ideas about it. But the problem was that the Acorn Archimedes keyboard protocol is rather weird and complicated. It's not like the PS2 keyboards that have scan codes that you can easily replicate. The Acorn Archimedes uses some kind of pulse signals, and it also has the mouse movements in it, and we were getting pretty far, but the problem was the game Zelanites. Zelanites interprets the keyboard differently than the other games. So what was working for most of the games did not work for Zelanites. If you just press the key once, with most of the games it would just move the character just a little bit. But with Zelanites it would continue reading the keyboard as if you were holding down the key. So that was just a weird thing we stumbled upon, and, well, I was just kind of getting fed up with it, and, well, my dad had already spent so much time on this that I thought, well, let's scrap the whole joystick interface idea. So what you're going to see is something that, well, was a work in progress but did not get realized. Even though we did get pretty far, but yeah, we just would have to make too much compromises, and, well, it would have become an inelegant solution, and, well, yeah, I thought, well, just let's quit it. Just let's see how far we got. We are here at the research and development lab, because we have finally sorted the mouse, but we are now working on something new and exciting, and it involves joysticks. As you can see, we have an arrangement here of different equipment, like a Sega Master System pad and a Suso joystick, and another joystick over here. And it involves, of course, games, because many Archimedes games do not have support for joysticks. They are always keyboard controlled, and the keys are often really weird with their assignments. Every game is different, and the idea is that we create something that will basically emulate key presses through a joystick. So that's kind of what we're working on. We already wired up this test thing, and we also have a game to test, which is James Bond. I just downloaded this off the internet and I wrote an image to a floppy. James Bond is a well-known game. It's very fun. I also have James Bond 2 Robocop and James Bond 3 Operation Starfish on the Mega Drive. And, well, this is the original James Bond. This is, of course, an Amiga port, as with many Archimedes games, and it is controlled with a keyboard. Of course, it has to load. The only thing we have not implemented yet is a fire button. Of course, this takes a while. I guess I could copy it to the RAM disk, but yeah, copying takes time too. So this is James Bond. Normally you would use Z and X to go left and right, and L and P to go up and down, and the space bar to jump. So now I'm going to use the keyboard for a bit. This is with the keyboard, and I just use space bar to bubble. But now I can use the joystick. Doe eens omhoog. So that's up. You see, it works perfectly fine with a clicky joystick. no keyboard necessary. Of course, the spacebar has not been implemented yet, and the goal is that we're going to make it so that it is configurable, that you could reassign the keys so that depending on the game the movements of the joystick could be a different key. And we would also like to make it so that you could store like 10 different configurations in a flash memory that you can easily reassign to make games playing well, a lot easier. And well, of course we have many other joysticks here. But now let's take a look at how it actually works. So we have to quit the game, we have to go back to the desktop. At the bottom here is the status line, and if I do the... So now I'm pressing X, which is the direction right, and left is Z, and up is P, and L is down. And it's all done through this joystick. So yeah, that's basically what we're working on. Well, if there are any further updates about this, I'll keep you posted. Right, here is an update on the joystick interface situation. We decided to scrap the idea of using regular joysticks because we would have some difficulties with the debouncing circuit. As you can see, we have actually connected 3 wires to each switch here, because that way my dad was able to create a really good debouncing circuit, and many of the gamepads and other joysticks have just really bad signal bouncing, and that was just a problem, especially with things like timing. So we got James Pond here, and we can now basically control him with the joystick and then the spacebar, and we have some other buttons as well. We have made a list of games with certain keys, and we are going to put them into a configurable box, just like I did with my MIDI patch bank selector. So this is like for another game, for Terramax and Zelanites and Metrocross. They all have different keys. And well, here is the circuit diagram of my universal gamepad slash joystick. We've actually opened it up because we're going to modify it. We are probably going to put another connector in the case so that the Archimedes will have its own wiring, because it has to be different. Because well, here are 3 wires connected for each switch, as you can see, 2 green ones, and then there's also the black one that is the ground wire. And this here is like the well, the top part of my universal joystick, which we're going to modify. As you can see, there's only like 2 wires connected to each switch, so we're going to add like a 3rd wire, like at the bottom on 3 switches here, and of course also here. And then we're going to branch that off to like a second interface, or we might like modify this one for a bit. But yeah, that's basically what we're doing, so that many different games can then be configured. And we're going to build a little box with a rotary encoder, with a settings menu, and something that you can change the name and the configuration for each game. We are kind of working here on the source code for it. So yeah, that's it for the moment. So as you could see, it was not particularly easy. My first idea was to create an interface where you could just plug in a Sega gamepad, because I thought that was the most elegant thing, like a Mega Drive pad or a Master System pad, and that you could use the keyboard to configure which key would be assigned to which movement, and it was all very nice in concept. But yeah, one of the problems we first had with those standard gamepads and joysticks was bouncing. Those things bounce a lot when you hit a button, And my dad really had problems with the debouncing of that, so he came up with a different solution that would require 3 wires instead of 2 wires per switch. And of course that is a major problem, because every joystick out there uses just 2 wires, a common wire and then a wire for each button, not 3 ones. But if you want to make like a really good debouncing circuit, you need 3 wires for some reason. Don't ask me why, you would have to ask my dad about that, because it has something to do with flip-flops and stuff that I don't know about. But yeah, he was able to make a pretty good debouncing circuit using standard arcade buttons. But of course that would mean I would have to use my big arcade joystick, and it would also have to be modified. It would need extra wires and extra connector, and that already was starting to head into a direction where I thought, oh, this might get messy. And then of course the whole configuration thing and the configurability thing would also be a little bit difficult, and we thought, well, why don't we just create something with a few presets of a few games that I play the most, like 10 games, so 10 of my favorite games, and we just build a box with a rotary dial where you can select a certain game. And I thought, oh, it's already becoming a bit more limited than I wanted, and then we hit upon that bug with Zelanites, and I thought, yeah, this is the point where we should not proceed with this project further. We just need to get the Acorn Archimedes restored to a certain point where it's workable and usable. So the whole joystick interface, well, yeah, sorry, it is scrapped for now. Although in the future we might come back to it, I'm really not sure. And I also found out that there are some games that actually have support for using a joystick through the serial port. So there might be a software solution. So yeah, we might not even need to build a joystick interface. So yeah, I'd say that was about it. That's just a bit unfortunate. Sometimes certain plans do not always work out, or they just go into a different direction where you need to think, hey, is this still the direction I want to go, or are we deviating too much from the original idea? And then I felt, well, yeah, it's time to stop this project because it's going too far off into a direction that I don't want it to go, and it's taking too much time. So yeah, that was it. Well, I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.